Welcome to Capital Tycoon, the place where future innovators come to learn. My guest today is Karen Emily Muhwezi. She has a great addiction to science. Particularly, she's exploring the power of regenerative medicine and how we can use it to grow body organs in the lab, which is crazy, something out of science fiction. Karen, thank you for joining my podcast. So my first question to you is, please tell me about what inspired you to get into regenerative medicine and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for me was when I started TKS. Actually, when I was doing my application, I was going through the different technologies that they were working on with the students. And then I came across 3D printing. And then I kind of went a bit into that. And then I found how they could use 3D printing to grow body organs. And I was like, what the bomb? Like, how do you actually do that? So I looked into how do you do that? And then I found that they use stem cells. So when I found stem cells, how I actually got into regenerative medicine, because stem cells are like the roots of regenerative medicine. So I started looking at all the different possibilities, and it was a very interesting topic. Of course, I went straight into it head on. And when I think about what regenerative medicine means to me, I think it's basically a world of endless possibilities, because when you think about it, the power of these cells alone is impeccable. You could basically solve every single disease by, turning these cells into a specific cell that you need, or into an organ or into a body part. Like, there's so many possibilities that it's very exciting for me. So when I think about all the research that could be done and all the different things that could come about, it's very exciting. So I have like such a deep love for it. So I think it's amazing.
Okay. And how did you teach yourself on these topics? I'm sort of curious, was there any specific learning methods you used, or how did you teach yourself?
Yeah, I think this goes back to TKS actually, because I started off with the Explore module. So when I did that, it was a very good base level for me to understand everything that I needed to know. And then when I got into that, I started getting more in depth into research papers, because research papers talk about everything more in depth. They give it more details in terms of what they actually do in the lab, which I didn't have access to the lab. So it was very helpful for me to understand that on that level. But then again, research papers have a lot of jargon. So I had to use explainpaper.com to kind of help me understand it at that stage, until I could actually understand each and every word and then get used to understanding that. I also like to read articles and watch videos. I think it's very helpful for me to visualize everything. And when I'm reading an article, I get very zoned in to that. It's like I am one with the article, and I kind of picture everything working out. I picture all the cells differentiating. I picture everything. I picture them transplanting the organ. I picture the patient. I like it when I can visualize everything and see how it's going to work out. That's where it sticks in me more. And it's actually a good thing that I've learned, because now I can also use it in school, where I can picture everything happening, all the physics, all the biology, and then it just sticks more in my head. So that helps me understand everything better.
Intriguing. And now I wanted to move on to the topic of the moonshot, TKS Moonshot, which we did. And you won the moonshot and single-handedly. So I wanted to know from you, what was the process like from the beginning of the moonshot to winning the grand prize globally? And could you expand on any highlights you learned from the challenge, from your own perspective of managing the whole project? And please walk me through the whole process from the start to up to winning the grand prize and pitching to judges.
Yeah. So actually, funny thing, in the beginning of the moonshots, I was doing my AS level exams, which are basically 60% of your final marks, so they're extremely important. So when I was having a conversation with Pranav, who's my director, about the whole moonshots and whether I should do it or not, we had decided that I shouldn't, because there was going to be too much work to handle, and these exams are extremely important. Of course, I was trying to get into good colleges, so I really couldn't risk it. So we had decided that I shouldn't do that. But then I had a conversation with Andre, who I also talked about in my presentation. And he's basically a kidney transplant patient recipient. And I was talking to him about his experience and how, the whole transplant process was for him, what he lost, what he gained, how it is after the transplant, challenges he's facing. And it was a very personal conversation, and it made me fall so much more in love with the problem, because we got to that personal level and we're talking, and I could see the pain in his eyes when he was describing the problems that he's facing. So that kind of gave me that drive. I said, okay, this is my project. I really have the love for it. I really want to work on it. I can't let it pass up. Yes, I have exams, but I have to make sure everything works out so that I, do this project, and I want to share it with the world, of course. So again, I go back to Pranav and I tell him, I really want to do this. It's such an interesting topic, and there are so many people that could be helped. It could have such a huge impact. So of course we go ahead and say, okay, we can go ahead and do the moonshots. But by myself, I chose to do it by myself because, again, with my exams, my timetable was a bit all over the place. There are times when I was free, times when I was not free. So being in a team was going to be very difficult for me to say, let's have a meeting on this day, because I wouldn't know if I would be free or I would have to study. So I could probably work on it in the middle of the night, but I can't call my team up in the middle of the night and say, let's work on this now. And I also didn't have the time to go back and forth with an idea, like what should we work on? So I decided to work on it on my own. And I think it was a good idea. I think you also asked what I learned along the way. And I think the biggest thing for me was prioritizing is so important, because with all these things on my plate, it was very easy for me to get overwhelmed. But when you prioritize what you want to do in this day or in this week, and then you can have a visualization of what you need to do and working with your time frame and working with all the things that you need to achieve, it's much, much better. It also helped me find a system that works for me, because many people use Google Calendar, or many people, I don't know, use physical calendars to help them organize their stuff. But I found that that really didn't work for me. I was better with writing things down, saying like, Tuesday, this is what I need to complete. This is the time that I'm going to do it. I don't know, writing it down kind of just helped it stick in my head a little bit more, because when I put in my digital calendar, I would just kind of forget to actually look at it. But when I wrote it down, it was like right next to me. So I always knew that I could look at it and just remember to do it in that time. So that was like the system that worked for me. And also, I really had a deep love for what I wanted to do. So anytime that I was facing a challenge, I would kind of just remember that love and focus on that more than the actual challenge that I'm facing, so that I could keep going in the middle of all the hustle or in the middle of all the craziness. So I think that answers all your questions. I'm not too sure.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I think I agree. I think it is about being obsessed with the problem. And if you genuinely like it, I think you do much better work in that field of work area. So definitely. Now, what are some challenges that you have faced during the moonshot?
Yes, definitely. Considering my exams time was a big thing, because the deadlines for moonshots were coming up. As you said, I had to present to judges in 2 rounds, and those were in the middle of the night for me. So I had to stay up late. So it was a very big difficulty for me to manage all the time. But again, working with my system, things worked out. Yes, I lost a little bit of sleep along the way, a lot of sleep actually along the way. But I think at the end of the day, it was worth it. But another thing that I really faced was self-doubt and comparison. Those are two very big things for me, because when I looked at my idea and I was working on it alone, so it was only basically me with that excitement. So when I would look at my idea and look at everyone else's ideas, I would kind of think to myself, okay, this is way too out of this world. Like, no one is, like, considering that this has been worked on since like the 1990s, and everyone else's idea seems feasible. Mine seemed like, and this was just the beginning stages, by the way. So mine seemed like I couldn't really actually achieve it. It's going to sound insane. Like, no one is actually going to believe that this can be done in 5 to 10 years. But of course, when I went more in depth and understood the technology that we have now, it made more sense. But in that time, there was a lot of, okay, there's no way I could do this. Actually, even going into the finals round, I was proud of myself alone for making it to the finals. So I was like, I'm just going to go into the finals and make sure that I both mentality my way through this, and make sure that I'm putting myself out there, making sure people understand the idea, whether I win or not. I was honestly not aiming to win. I was just aiming to present to everyone in a good and like compatible way. So it was a very big thing. Doubt was a very big thing, especially with working alone. No one was around me to say, yes, it's an amazing idea. Of course, I was talking to people in the industry, and there were also, these are people that have worked on this as well. So they would also question, we have been working on this. There's no way this can come to life. So I'd have to explain, we can do this, but then there'll be a problem with what I'm saying. And of course, up to this day, even though I did my research, there are still certain problems with that. But I think it's the whole idea of understanding that those problems can be solved, and actually giving yourself that grace of saying that even though it sounds crazy, it's not crazy, because you've done your research and everything is going to make sense. So I think those are the biggest problems for me.
Makes sense. And my next question was going to be, how do you reach out to the right experts and individuals in the industry? Can you offer any tips you learned?
Yes, so as I said, I like reading research papers. So obviously on on each research paper, there's going to be an author. So I prefer to reach out to those authors of the research papers because I can easily tell that they have, works on this problem that I want to talk about or a specific technology that I want to discuss, other than just going to their LinkedIn page and searching regenerative medicine and then getting a list of random people to reach out to. I like to be very specific with who I'm reaching out to. So once I get these authors, I either contact them through LinkedIn or email. What I found is that LinkedIn is easier. And actually, a funny thing that I found is that when you connect with someone through LinkedIn without leaving a note, there are higher chances that they'll accept your connection request, other than when you leave a note explaining, oh, I'd really love to talk to you about this. And yeah, hi, I'm a 17-year-old. Like, no, if you just connect to them normally, that way people normally connect on LinkedIn, then they accept your connection request, then you have more space and more wording to explain yourself and explain what you want to talk about. Or I would use different email finders. I like to use Signal Hire and I think Connect Out. Those really help me get people's emails off of LinkedIn. So when I would use those in the email, it's very important to be specific about what you want to talk about, because these are researchers, these are professors, they don't really have time to read extremely long emails. It's very important that I keep it spaced and then I'm specific that, hello, I want to talk about this, this, and this because I read your paper about this. And another thing that I also found is that it's very crucial when you send them some of your work. So I think that's why TKS is really helpful, because it put me in that position where I would have to put out articles or put out videos or record presentations that I could send to these people. And it's easier for someone to watch you and understand other than just reading a text, because who knows, you could be a scam or like they are just reading an email from someone that they have no idea exists. So when you send them a video or when you send them an article that you posted up already, that already has some likes or people already read it, then it gives you more credibility kind of. So that's what I really like to do, keeping it short, keeping it specific, and showing them what I'm doing in kind of like a video form or in an article form.
That's useful to know. And what would you say is the importance of getting feedback and having a feedback loop, I suppose?
I think feedback is extremely important because it's very easy for you to fall in love with what you're working on. But then when you get other people's perspectives on what you're working on, it's better. For example, if you think about a product, if you're building a product for 7 years and you keep working on it to make sure that it's absolutely perfect, and then when you actually put it out there after wasting 7 years and you find out that people actually don't like it or people don't want to use it, it would be a whole waste of time, a whole waste of resources. So it's better for you to get feedback earlier on and keeping it consistent so that people can constantly tell you, personally, I wouldn't do this, or personally, I wouldn't use this, or I wouldn't be interested in using this part of your product, or I'm not interested in reading long research papers. I would prefer to watch videos. So you can understand what hits people better, because when you're putting out content, you want people to receive it, you want people to enjoy it. Otherwise, you're just going to be kind of like one person on the internet with no one looking at you if you don't pay attention to what people are giving you based on feedback. So it's very important to get honest feedback, but at the same time, you have to kind of weigh it out. Not everything that someone says to you has to be taken up. Or if someone says, I don't like the color of, I don't know, the robot that you're building, then you absolutely change that color, or you absolutely, you do everything that everyone tells you. You have to weigh out whether that person not makes sense, but whether what they are saying could make a huge difference on the product, or whether you as a customer, you put yourself in the customer's shoes or the recipient's shoes and see whether, the change that they're suggesting would make what you're giving out better. So overall feedback is highly, highly important, but you have to be very careful with what you actually take from that feedback and actually implement into your product.
That makes sense. And what are some mindsets you have learned or found useful when it comes to undertaking an innovative project like a moonshot?
Yeah, the interesting thing about moonshots is that they put you basically in a CEO's seat. And one of the mindsets that we went through during TKS was thinking like a CEO. So that was my number one mindset at all times. I took myself so seriously, whether it was how my logo looks or making sure it's on the right point in the slides and making sure that I was making hard decisions. It was basically looking at this moonshot idea as a business. But also an interesting thing that Pranav taught us when we were discussing this mindset was being the CEO of your own life. So yes, I have my moonshot nephrosin business, but at the same time, I have to make sure that I'm keeping up with myself, make sure that I am, whether it's working out or drinking water or going outside or sleeping right, eating right. Like I had to be the CEO of my own life, taking myself as a business. So it would help me keep on track and make sure that everything was going right in that, realm of that moonshot project. Another thing was the bias towards action, because as I said, I had a lot of things on my plate. So it was very easy. As I said, you have to make a system and know what goals you want to achieve, but it's very easy for you to say, I want to do this, this, and this, and this. But then the hard part comes in actually doing that. So I had to look forward more to the actual doing than actually just planning out everything, because that's the only way things were going to get done. So bias towards action was another thing that was at the top of my mind. So mindset maybe would be first principles thinking, because this was a very big field, a new field that many people are looking into. So if I had gone straight to what's the solution, how can we solve this, instead of understanding the problem at that depth and going way, way, way back and understanding it from step one, what happened in the beginning, why is this problem a problem, who is actually facing the problem, how did the problem come up. So thinking of everything from the basics and then building from that, instead of starting from the top and then working your way down to the bottom. I think that helped me kind of understand everything better other than just rushing into it. And also, when it comes to all the different deliverables that we had with Moonshots, the website, the videos, I'm a very picky person and I'm a perfectionist. So when I was doing all this, I would get lost a lot in trying to make sure that the aesthetic was perfect or making sure that it looks nice and everything was cohesive. But then a mindset that I remembered was how we talked about the monkey over the pedestal. And in that mindset, basically, if someone told you to, I'm just going to explain it briefly, but if someone told you to teach a monkey Shakespeare, you would not start with building the pedestal. You would actually have to teach the monkey, because that's the harder part. So the whole point is doing what's harder first than focusing on the small details that barely matter. So, for example, the aesthetic of my website or of my slideshow, that wasn't as important as actually understanding the knowledge and making sure everything that I was saying was cohesive and it was the right thing, and that everything that maybe like the problem connected to the solution, and that I was talking about the roadblocks. So that was more important, especially with this being a very technical field. I had to understand every single bit of it so that in the Q&A, I was ready to go, or so that I actually understood it just for the sake of getting that knowledge and being able to have conversations with experts. So it was very important for me to focus on what's most important first, so that I could, build off of that, and then everything else would just fall into place, other than trying to rush into, let me be perfect, but, focusing on the harder stuff first.
That's a good point. And how has the Knowledge Society or TKS contributed to the value of your dream?
Yeah. TKS has been amazing. I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to take part, first of all. And I think the biggest thing was the mentoring. Pranav and all the other directors were amazing. I think we had so many conversations on a number of topics that opened my mind to so many different things that I wasn't considering in my life, all the different mindsets that we learned. I could talk about it forever, but let me just try and go in depth. So first of all, the mentoring, I think all the one-on-ones that I had with Pranav were very useful. We talked about both my personal life and my work life and my dreams and school. And it was like a full circle, making sure I was my best self, and all the different like feedback that I got from the directors during, whether it was a hackathon or a challenge. I was always, talking to these different directors and making sure that I was learning from them. And these are people that have gone through different experiences and they're in high places. So it was even just a priority to be around them. So I was always trying to absorb from them and make sure that I was making the best out of them. And then when you think about the network, it's also a very good kind of situation, because you're brought into a space where everyone has kind of the same thinking as you. Everyone wants to be their best self. Everyone is striving to achieve certain goals. So even just through brain dates, I was learning a lot about different people and learning about their passions. It's actually how I even got interested into different topics like piezoelectricity or robotics. Different topics outside of regenerative medicine would always intrigue me. And then I would find myself reading about them and planning different projects. Maybe I could do this, maybe I could do this. So it was very helpful for me to be in that space of people. And actually talking about hackathons and challenges, being in a team is something that's very, very important because, and I didn't realize that as much until I was actually in a TKS team. Because when you do school projects, school team projects at school with teams, it's not as serious as, this one in TKS where you have to make sure that everyone's role is very set out. And I was actually the project manager for all the challenges, all the teams that I've been with, I've been the project manager. So it was very important to make sure that my team was cohesive, that everyone knew what they were doing, that the roles were set out, that we were meeting on a daily basis. But then it also had to push me to make very hard decisions. I had to kick people out of that team. And that's something that I had never had to do. So it was very difficult for me to learn how to do that. But when you think about how that will help me in the future, it's huge. If I'm going to be the CEO of a company, then I have to learn how to do these things, but in the right way. So it was very helpful for me to kind of be put in that situation and also learn from different people. It was a good way for me to connect. So I think the way they set out the whole TKS program itself, the curriculum is so perfect, if I could say, because now you're put in different situations that help you in many different ways. And when I think about all the mindsets that we have learned, it's insane. I could go on talking about them for forever. The boss mentality, that thinking like a CEO, the I don't know, monkey of a pedestal, all the different mindsets that I've talked about and more that I haven't. It was such a good way for me to stay in touch with TKS because it's no joke that it's a fact that TKS is not the easiest to go through, especially moving from being such a conventional person to being put in this situation where you are learning different things and learning different, like so many things are happening, you have so many things on your plate. So the mindsets were a good way to keep me on track at all times and make sure that I was my best self again, doing the right thing. And then when you think about, yes, we have the mindsets in a normal TKS, but when you go down to velocity, I was doing velocity, and that pushed me to my limits because I was not really someone, whether it was just the smallest things as working out, I was not someone who worked out. But then when I started doing velocity, we were put in a very hard situation. So it was like a must for me to work out. And then I started understanding, okay, working out actually helps me in my work ethic, or it helps me be more attentive in class. It was very small things like drinking water or reading a book or going outside, very small things that velocity taught me. So I'm always grateful for that. And I still live with those velocity traits and mindsets that we learned. So all in all, it kind of pushed me to be the best version of myself, even though I'm still learning and I'm still growing. I think being in TKS alone kind of forces you to be self-aware, number one, to understand what am I doing, why am I doing it, and how can I do it the best way. And secondly is to get that sense of discipline, because you have to understand, like, I want to get to these goals, but I can't just get to it overnight. I have to struggle and I have to do certain things to get to that point. So you kind of get that discipline the hard way. And I think that was very useful for me. So TKS, amazing. And I can't wait to go to Activate. I think it's going to be 10 times better because now you're put into this niche of people that are kind of like the best of the best. So it's going to be, I can only imagine like the 10x growth that I'm going to get. I'm so excited.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think the TKS has been an amazing experience, even I having gone through the program, and also I think particularly for me, I think the community aspect was really something which stood out. I think you can't really get anywhere else like-minded individuals like this who are youth and ambitious and actually making a positive impact. And I probably wouldn't have met people like you. I wouldn't have learned all the mindsets you mentioned about. I think it all really starts with the mindset. So I think it's important to learn all the different mindsets, boss mentality, and actually implement that into your work and how your approach to work. So definitely. Now, you mentioned earlier that by doing more brain dates, you got interested in other fields of emerging tech, like piezoelectricity, for example. So that's a good segue to my next question, which is, tell me more about your other passions.
Yeah, I think regenerative medicine is a huge one, honestly, even though when it comes to different topics like piezoelectricity or robotics, it's honestly me just trying to tap into my curiosity, because I can also say that I want to do this in the future. I want to be a researcher, but I'm still young. I want to make sure that I've explored as many options as possible. So my main passion, honestly, is to just make an impact in the healthcare system, whatever form that comes in, whether it's doing research in regenerative medicine or it's using technology like machinery, maybe robotics, we could go into telesurgery. I don't know, piezoelectricity could bring energy. It's honestly just impact in the healthcare system, because I'm from Uganda and that's a very low income country. So actually just joining TKS has shown me how big of a difference there is when it comes to the technology growth in the Western countries and, Uganda or Africa as a whole. So when I started exploring that and understanding that, even when I would reach out to different researchers, if I would have a conversation with someone from the US and then I talk about this technology, they would be so well versed in it. But when I talk about it with a researcher in Uganda, they'd be like, oh yes, that thing, we are trying to get there, but it's so difficult. Actually, I was just having a meeting with the executive director of a research center here in Uganda. And you know how the UK has kind of regulated CRISPR and they already have done different treatments with it. And I was telling her about that, and she said, oh, yes, we have been trying to get it, but we don't even have a single CRISPR kit because it's so expensive. And that literally, I wasn't shocked, but I was very hurt, because I think places like Uganda are places that need this kind of technology. Our hospitals are packed, that people are suffering. If you go there, you could feel the pain. I feel the pain every time that I go to a hospital, especially ones deep in the villages. So my main passion, I know you asked me about other passion, but my main passion is to just make an impact in that, whether it's I go study abroad, get that knowledge, make those connections, and come back to Uganda and bring that technology here, because we really, really, really need it. It's a lot. Like we need to make sure that the people that are struggling with these diseases have that access to, healthcare, but then again in an affordable way. And I think that's the most difficult part, making it affordable, because but then again it could be made affordable if we just work on it, as a group or with many people, many centers. So yeah, I don't really have a lot of other passions apart from that specific, impact in the healthcare systems, and also generally helping people. I think when I look at people compared to my situation, I have such, I don't know if you call it empathy or sympathy for everyone. I want to make sure that everyone is living the best life that they could. So I always aim to help people, whether it's as small as giving someone something to eat or helping them with a number in class that they can't understand. It's just kind of helping people. I think that summarizes all my passions, helping people. And technology is really interesting and it's really fun. So I think it's a good integration of everything coming together to help me achieve that goal.
Okay. And why is content creation important when it comes to showcasing your work and securing opportunities? And do you have any tips for anyone to start creating content?
Yeah, this is another thing that TK has actually opened me up to, because I was not a huge content creator in the beginning, or I was, but more in like a slaying version more than actually knowledge version. So when I think about it in terms of putting yourself out there, no one will actually know that you ever exist if you don't. So if you don't create content and you're secretly doing research or you're secretly coding in your basement and making apps, but not putting it out there, no one is going to know. No one is going to be helped. No one is going to use it. No one is going to give you opportunities. So creating content is like the basis of everything. Even when I talked about reaching out to people, you have to send them what you're doing. And to do that, you have to make content. So it's very important that you put yourself out there. And I know it can be intimidating, but one thing that I liked to do was kind of just say, kind of shut out all the negative energy and just start. If you're a new content creator, just start. Don't overthink it. Just put out your first video or put out your first article, and things will get better down the line. My first newsletter was very horrible and very cringe, but with time, you kind of get used to it and you fall in love with it. Now I look forward to the end of the month so that I can just rant about my newsletter. I mean, rant about what happened in my month, or I look forward to learning about things so that I could put out that knowledge and help other people understand it. So that down the line, if I come to someone and I tell you, I want to give you a 3D printed organ, they can't say, what? Like, that's science fiction. I could just give you this video that you can watch and it will explain everything other than having to explain it myself. Another thing is being very consistent, because with content creation, it's it's only going to make an impact if you're consistent. It's only going to reach a lot of people. You're going to get a lot of followers if you're constantly posting. So if it's YouTube, you need to set kind of like a goal, even though I haven't done this, but you need to set like a goal and say, I'm going to post maybe every month or every week, and I'm going to post about this kind of content. But then again, cast a wide net. Don't try to be too specific. But specificity is nice. Just try to find your niche, try to find your crowd, your audience, your people, because those will support you and those will help you kind of gain the following that you need, or the opportunities that you need, the exposure, because one person will watch your video and then they'll talk about it when they're with their friend, and then their friend will have a professor friend who needs someone for an internship, and then boom, now you have an internship just because you put a video up on YouTube. So it's a whole compounding process that I think everyone needs to be doing, and more even myself. So I think content creation is a huge thing.
Yeah, I suppose that is the power of content creation. And I think also, are you in Build Space, by the way?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I think programs like Build Space, as you know, I think they also teach you that compounding process which you talked about, and also, yeah, that's sort of like a forcing function to build projects. But yeah, definitely, I think you sort of increase your surface area for luck, all in all,
Yeah.
by creating more content. Now, having created a high impact projects, what would your advice be to our generation, the youth, who want to make a positive impact on humanity?
So I don't want to repeat myself with all the mindsets and time management that I've talked about. So I think the biggest thing that I would say is working on something that you have a personal connection to. That will help you in everything. That will help everything come together, because working on such huge projects, it's very easy for you to get lost or to doubt yourself or for things to get difficult. So if you work on something that you have a personal connection to, you can always look at that love for that thing and then remember why you're actually doing it and keep fighting on. So when I had my conversation with Andre, it was like the aha moment in my head of this is why I want to do everything. And it gives you that drive and that push to keep doing it and reach out to all these people and go out of your comfort zone. So yeah, time management, of course, mindsets, of course, giving grace to yourself is another thing, because for example, when I was doing Moonshot with exams, I was very hard on myself in the beginning. I thought that I needed to be working hard every single second of the day, and if I wasn't, then I would be so hard on myself and say, oh my gosh, you're the absolute worst person because you didn't wake up at 5 a.m. or you didn't stay up the whole night. But quite frankly, it's not that. So you need to give yourself grace at all times and try to focus more on the love, as I said, of what you're working on.
Yeah. Tell me about your experience founding Hearts of Hope, and what does your team aim to achieve, and what is the value of giving back to those in need?
Yeah, so to explain briefly what Hearts of Hope is, it's just a very small, I wouldn't say organization, maybe just a group of people. We are trying to help street children in Uganda. So Uganda has a lot of street children, specifically Kampala. There are lots of children that just live on the street or come to cars begging for money or begging for food. And we aim to help them in whatever way possible. So for now, we have been giving out clothes, giving them out food, trying to understand it from the base level. Why are they actually on the street? We've also spoke to a few organizations, trying to see how we can help them to expand so that they can take in more children. But then that comes in with funds. So we need to hold different functions to get funds. But the biggest thing is spreading awareness about this issue, because actually why I got into Hearts of Hope is because I was going home from school one day and these kids like to kind of clean the windshields of people when it's like traffic jam or a red light, so they can get money. You think like when I clean their windshield, they're going to give me some money. So this child was cleaning someone's windshield, and the person rolled down their window and was shouting at them, cussing at them so much, like, leave me alone, you stinking child, and like, go away. I don't want you to touch my car. And that broke my heart, honestly, just broke my heart. So I started watching them, one, understanding how much they suffer. And I couldn't just sit every day and let them live like that. So we had to start speaking to organizations so they could get them off the street. And all these children have a lot of potential. You never know that this could be someone who's an amazing dancer, or someone who's could be the president, an amazing tailor, a doctor. Like, they have so much potential that no one is actually looking at. And I feel like everyone needs to have that chance to at least try. Of course, some of them aren't the best. Actually, when I was talking to some organizations, They told me that these children sometimes come in as thieves. They come in with different diseases because police rape them at night. Like there are so many different things that come in with that child because of the situation that they have been placed in. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to help them. So that's a little bit about Hearts of Hope. But I think the reason why we should be giving back to everyone is because if we have been so blessed to receive everything that we have, why not help those that don't have it? Why not help those that have been placed in situations that they can't, they didn't choose to be in that situation. They didn't choose to be street children, but they are. And you also didn't choose to be, showering hot water every day or having a glass of water anytime that you need it, but you do. And some people don't, and you have it in excess. So why not share that with other people? I think it's just like basic human need. Like you need to be helping other people because you can't be comfortable, or at least I can't be comfortable knowing that there is someone who could be benefiting from something that I'm throwing in the trash because they don't have anything to eat at all. So giving back is extremely important.
Yeah. And now, how do you, going back to the work side of things, how do you balance your work, internships, high school programs, and competitions alongside your studies?
Yeah, so I think this goes back to how I managed Moonshot with my exams. Again, it goes back to prioritizing and time management. So actually, I didn't talk about this, but I was reading an article called The Cook and the Chef, and they talks about how you need to have a want box, which is all the goals that you want to achieve, maybe let's say for that day or for that week or for that month. And then you have a reality box, which is what can you actually achieve considering your time and your resources, and then a goal pool, which is where that overlaps. So I think that's something that I have actually just recently said, putting into play. So I like to lay out what do I want to achieve, or what deadlines do I have to meet? What can I actually meet? What's actually important? Because there are many different programs that I'm trying to get into, different internships, different opportunities, basically. But I can't get into everything. So I have to kind of look at what can I actually get and then create my goal pool. And then I work with that. So time management, finding a system that works for you, whether it's a calendar or writing it down or reminders on your phone or locking away your phone, putting it upstairs so that you don't have access to it when you're doing work. And then another thing that I talked only a little bit about was working out. Working out is actually extremely important because I realized that when I work out, for example, in the morning and then I take a cold shower after, my brain would be so active and so sharp. So I find that I work better in the morning. So then I can utilize that time more other than in the night when I'm tired by like 9 p.m. and I'm trying to do something, but I'm not going to do it my best. So you have to make sure, or at least I try to make sure that I am keeping myself in that state where I'm handling my personal life and my work life at the same time really well. But of course, not everything is sunshine and rainbows. Problems come, bad days come about. But it's how you manage all of that that makes it all work out.
Okay, and my next question is, you recently took part in the Yale Young Global Scholars Program. Tell me a bit about your experience with that and what were some highlights?
Yeah, I was definitely so lucky to be able to attend that program. That was probably like my highlight of the year, honestly. Because first of all, the Yale campus is so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I can't get over it. This was my first time in the US, so it was a whole experience. But I think the Yale campus is such a beautiful place, and it was honestly breathtaking just to wake up every day and walk around and explore everything. But then again, also that people, it's kind of like a TKS community because these are all people that have dreams, and it was very interesting to have conversations with them, but outside of just a computer screen, and actually spend 2 whole weeks with them and make friendships. And what I loved actually about the YYGS was that you're placed in a family, which is basically like a group of about 10 people, and you meet these people every day and you just talk about your experience at YYGS, or you talk about life. And that was like the best way to connect with people because I would learn about their different life experiences and then we could connect on that. But then also the different activities that went on, like the seminars, the lectures, those just gave me the university feel. I already loved Yale and I already wanted to apply, but now I love it even more because I've got the feel of what it means to be a Yale student and actually wake up and go for a lecture and actually enjoy the lecture, even though it was a field that I was not interested in. Like we talked about environment or about the exoplanets, like space, and those are not big topics for me, but I was instantly interested because of the way that they teach it to you and the way that instructor is going to, make the whole lecture engaging. So I loved that. And then I also participated in the speaker series and talent show, which was amazing. First of all, for talent show, I wanted to dance, but I didn't want to dance alone. So I went in with a mission that I had to find someone who loved dance and we could dance together. And luckily, I was able to achieve it. So I think that was such a fun, genuinely, it was so fun. I wrote a whole newsletter article on it, explaining everything, but it was nice. The instructors were really knowledgeable. Most of them were PhD students, so it was a good chance for me to connect to them on that level and talk about how I'm looking for, hands-on experience, and they would give me exact advice on how to go about that and even different connections that I could reach out to. So overall, YYGS is amazing. If you still have the chance to apply, I would definitely advise that you apply because it's such an amazing experience being around the people, being around the area, the instructors and what you learn, all the different knowledge that I came back with was amazing. And genuinely, I loved the whole thing.
That's good to hear. Now, who inspires you?
That's an interesting question. I may have an interesting answer because it's not going to be a specific person. It's honestly just my future self. When I look at all the things that I want to achieve and all the goals that I have, whether it's research and making a huge breakthrough in the medical or healthcare sector, I look forward to that. I look at that person so much. I look forward to being that person. So when I look at how the different systems that she uses to manage her life, everything that I think about my future self is basically the person that that inspires me a lot. And when I think about all the different goals that I have, it gives me that motivation of, okay, this is where I want to do everything. So let me keep going because I want to be me in the future. Yeah. So I don't really look at a specific person. And I think that's very weird of me. But there's really no one that I admire more than my future self.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think, yeah, you have to, at the moment, work accordingly to your future self as well. And I think that it's a good point of inspiration to have. What are you going to be working on next?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm in build space and I'm still going to be looking into the stem cell space, but I'm going to move away from body organs and into spinal cord injuries because I found it just really interesting. So I'm going to be writing a review research paper on how we could use stem cells to solve spinal cord injury because I think that's something that takes a toll on someone's life in a really huge way. And actually, weirdly, when I started doing my research on it, I found that it's also really expensive too treat someone, not even treat, but to manage the lifestyle of someone who got a spinal cord injury because there's a lot of medication involved and different equipment like wheelchairs, and now you have to get ramps, and it takes a toll on their mental health so much. So I'm going to be writing a review research paper on that and trying to hopefully get it published. So currently I've been reading a lot of research papers, a lot of articles, and trying to understand the science behind it, and obviously still taking first principles thinking into play and making sure that I'm understanding it from the basis. And yeah, I'm also applying to universities because I'm going in for the September 25 intake. So that has also been another huge thing. But yeah, basically that.
Okay, well, best of luck with that.
Thank
And
you.
now we have a closing tradition in this podcast where I ask the guest a question, and that question is, what is one quote or piece of advice you want the audience, our listeners, to take away with that you have learned through your work?
Oh, that's a good one. Let me think. I think this is going to be a cliche one, but I think it's going to be try and fail, but don't fail to try. I think coming into TKS, I was very afraid of trying because I thought that there's no way I could get into that program, or there's no way I would get that scholarship. There's no way I would win that thing. But you always have to try and then see how things work out. I think just trying and exposing myself to all these different things led me to that I never expected that I could, even just going to YYGS, I never expected that I would get accepted. But if I hadn't tried, then I wouldn't have gone. So I think it's putting yourself out there, putting yourself out of your comfort zone. Please get out of your comfort zone because that's the only way other things are going to come up to you. So yeah, try and fail, but don't fail to try.
That's a good one. And where can people find you online if they want to follow along with your journey?
Yeah, my LinkedIn, I think you can just search Muhwezi Emily or Muhwezi Karen Emily on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I also have a YouTube channel, Substack, Medium, Instagram, literally anywhere. My email, I think I could give it to Josh and muhweziemilykaren@gmail.com. So you can always reach out to me if you want to have a conversation about anything. I would love to talk. I'm always happy to connect with new people. So yeah, happy to talk to anyone on any platform, honestly.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen, for joining my podcast today once again. And it was
Yeah.
a great pleasure having you on.
Thank you too. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.